Florida Theatre presents husband and wife duo Drew and Ellie Holcomb, known for their soulful Americana sound, having toured with legends like Willie Nelson, Don Henley, and the Avett Brothers. Tuesday, February 13th at 7:30 p.m. Tickets and information at floridatheater.com. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Hi from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. World leaders are slamming President Trump's plan to take over the Gaza Strip. At a press conference at the White House on Tuesday, Trump said he would like to help rebuild the war-torn region. He also suggested that Palestinians who've been displaced should be relocated. NPR's Jerome Sokolowski reports Trump's comments break with decades of U.S. foreign policy, which has long emphasized a two-state solution.
The Saudi Foreign Ministry issued a statement that doesn't mention Trump's words, but it does say Palestinians will remain steadfast on their land and called the kingdom's position on that unwavering and non-negotiable. Leaders in exile of the Palestinian militant group Hamas did react directly to the comments. Azat al-Rashaq, a member of Hamas's Politburo, called them racist. Hamas spokesman Sami Abu Zuhri said they were ridiculous and absurd and capable of igniting the region. Here in Israel, government ministers warmly welcomed Trump's words. Others were more circumspect. Former Defense Minister Benny Gantz said they represent creative, original, and interesting thinking. Jerome Sokolowski, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The Senate has confirmed Pam Bondi as the nation's next Attorney General. NPR's Ryan Lucas reports Bondi secured all Republican votes, plus one Democrat, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman.
Pam Bondi is a former Attorney General for the state of Florida and a Trump loyalist. Republicans view her as highly qualified to lead the Justice Department, while Democrats have concerns about whether she can be independent from Trump. Bondi was one of his personal attorneys during his first impeachment trial in the Senate. She's also echoed his claims that the justice system has been weaponized against conservatives. Bondi now takes the helm at the Justice Department as it is reeling from a series of personnel moves imposed by the Trump administration that have pushed out senior career officials at both the DOJ and the FBI. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump's plan to house roughly 30,000 migrants at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba appears to be moving ahead. NPR's Sasha Pfeiffer reports the first group arrived there this week.
The U.S. has not released an official figure, but it appears to be a small number, possibly just one flight with about a dozen migrants on board. The Department of Homeland Security says they're all members of a Venezuelan organized crime group called Tren de Aragua.
That's NPR's Sasha Pfeiffer reporting. The Trump administration's plan is expected to face a number of legal challenges. Stocks across Asia close mixed today. On Wall Street, Dow futures are trading lower at this hour. This is NPR News in Washington.
You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's 9:04. A federal judge has thrown out a lawsuit from 3 Florida moms who argued that the state's policies regarding book removals are unfair. St. Johns County moms Nancy Trey and Ann Watts-Tressler joined another mother from Orange City in the suit last summer, saying the process for trying to get a book removed from school libraries leaves no recourse for people who want to appeal the removal and have the books placed back on the shelves. Judge Alan Windsor says the system to challenge books is working the way that Florida law intended. The plaintiffs were backed by organizations including the ACLU of Florida, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and Democracy Forward. A spokesperson for Democracy Forward says they are disappointed with the decision and are considering how to move forward. Governor Ron DeSantis' budget proposal for the 2025-26 fiscal year calls for phasing out a 2% sales tax businesses pay when they rent commercial property. The nonprofit government watchdog Florida Tax Watch has been advocating for that change for some time. Tax Watch CEO Dominic Calabro says it especially hurts small businesses, and DeSantis' proposed spending plan also includes several sales tax holidays that Tax Watch also supports. This afternoon in Jacksonville, we're going to have highs reaching the upper 70s to lower 80s in northeast Florida. Patchy fog is expected to develop again after midnight. We'll have mostly cloudy skies with lows in the upper 50s.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR be the model for high-quality journalism in the 21st century. This is NPR.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, what does it mean to celebrate Black History Month in a state system that's opposed to diversity and equity? We talked to a longtime Duval educator about how teachers and schools are making the grade. Later in the program, how the vision of Florida's first Black millionaire continues to shape the story of the First Coast. But first, our observance of Black History Month continues with a look at how teaching African American history and literature has changed and how educators are treading what can seem like an impossibly thin line. To discuss that, we're joined by former Duval County School Superintendent and current CEO of the Children's Literacy Initiative, Dr. Diana Greene. Good morning, Dr. Greene.
Good morning.
So if you can help us understand what the challenge is in the system, celebrating Black History Month at a time and in a state that is sometimes seemingly hostile to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes, educators do have a fine line to walk when educating students about Black history. But I would be remiss to say, one, Black history is more than the month of February, that Black history is American history. And we have never done a good job in public education of teaching Black history. If it was not for the church, community, or African Americans, that is how we actually learn more and more about our history. But in the state of Florida, Black history was always a part of state standards. And it still is a part of state standards. It is the concern as it relates to teaching about the unpleasant parts of our history, such as slavery. And right now, it is required that what standards that are to be taught, we should not be putting children in a place where they feel guilty or they feel some type of emotion that would lead a parent to say, you are targeting my child as it relates to teaching about slavery. It is still a standard, but it's now teachers feeling the pressure of, well, how do I teach this? I am proud to say in Duval County, we had a strong African American history course in high school. We have Summer Institute for African American History, where high school students actually wrote curriculum related to the African American history here in Jacksonville for other grade levels, such as fourth grade, where you're learning about Florida history. And those resources, I believe, are still in schools today to support teaching African American history. It is just, we still need our communities, our churches, to continue to stand up and ensure that all children understand about Black history and how it is a part of our fabric of America.
I mean, you, in addition to being a superintendent, were an educator in schools for a long, long time. Do you have advice for teachers? I mean, obviously, talking about subjects like slavery or segregation, which are a enormous part of the story of Black Americans and their struggle for equality in this country. How do you teach about topics that are that weighted and difficult without creating some level of discomfort in people of all races who are listening to or learning about it?
So that's the $64,000 question that I'm not sure any of us have a perfect answer for that question. What I encourage teachers to do is teach the standards that are tied to your grade level and do it in a way that you are making sure that you are teaching fact-based. And it we have curriculum, we have resources for them to utilize, but it that's where the challenge is, and that's where someone might decide, well, I'm just not going to teach this because I'm not going to put myself in a situation, and that's the struggle that we are having in public education.
I mean, the story of slavery is painful. You think about a classic like Haley's Roots, when that series ran on television. I'm old enough to remember when it did. It was a profound moment for this country, and there were very heated emotions from people who saw what was done in the name of suppressing an entire race of people. It is hard to subtract emotion out of that.
It absolutely is. And, it's the emotion that helps us not repeat things that were unpleasant in history. It's remembering our history and hopefully not repeating the mistakes of the past. And that's why we're very challenged in the state of Florida. Our educators are very challenged.
Yeah. You're just joining us. We're talking about celebrating Black history in a state that regulates how race is taught. You can join our conversation by calling 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. We have a call from Wells on the South Side. Good morning, Wells. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I just want to make a note here of what is happening in our education system across the country, and particularly here in Florida and Jacksonville. It's the very nature of the economic and political system that we are living under that is dictating the privatization of our schools and our race, Black history. We're experiencing settler colonialism here. We just heard the president last night talk about taking over Gaza. I mean, that's imperialism and colonialism at its highest. So I think that there needs to be a movement that is built around protecting our schools, our public school system, and really explaining to the general public what's going on. I just want to thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Wells. Appreciate the call. I also want to take a call from Stanley on the North Side. Good morning, Stanley. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning to both of you ladies, especially Miss Greene. Y'all doing a great job. First, there's two types of education. There's school book that teach you how to maintain a job or create a business. And then there's the second one talks about teaching education at home. I'm talking about African American education should be taught in the community. And African Americans fail to do that. Now, when it comes to DEI, I do not support DEI. It's very important here that in the African American community, and I run a think tank, in the African American community, they are not stepping up to the pump when it comes to education. I'm talking about life skill education. Thank you.
Thanks, Stanley. I want to ask you, Dr. Greene, there are state regulations, and then there are kind of self-regulations that sometimes emerge in the wake of state law, particularly if there isn't a lot of clarity, in terms of what the law demands or what penalties are potentially out there. So what do you hear from your former colleagues in the school, the world of education, about self-regulation or kind of trying to, feeling perhaps that they need to step back from what they typically would have taught?
Well, actually, we're not hearing in great detail about self-regulation and what colleagues are doing differently. I think what currently is happening is the rhetoric is continuing and the buzzwords are continuing, but educators teach, and they're going to teach the standards for the state of Florida. And I think my only concern is that if they feel discomfort, then they just won't teach it. And it's very hard to figure out whether they taught it or not. But as the gentleman said, we still need to rely on our communities, our churches, our individuals that are outside the public education to continue to expose not just African American students, but all students to the rich tapestry of African American history. That we tend to focus on the negative aspects of what this country has been through as it relates to slavery, but there is so much to celebrate about the contributions African Americans have made to this country. And I think that is the reason the movement to African American, because we are Americans and we have contributed to our country. And although it came through a period of time that was very abusive, violent, that we came to this country, we have remained in this country and we contribute to this country. And so it is about American history that is focused on African Americans. And as I stated, it should be beyond the month of February.
Yeah, I mean, we should note that the Black History Month was formalized by a Republican president, 1976 President Ford, but it was created as Negro History Week in 1926 by the scholar Carter Woodson. And he did it because there really, as in his words, the Black history simply was not being taught. It was not included in any of the history textbooks, except possibly as a footnote. But there is obviously an enormous, rich cultural and scholarly and creative history in the country that is. It's hard to imagine the tapestry of the United States without all of the many contributions and kind of evolution of the history of the country.
Absolutely. Our nation's capital, the architect who really developed Washington, D.C., Benjamin Banneker, African-American gentleman who put in place what we see today in Washington, D.C. So we have been contributors to this country since we arrived. It's just amazing of what we've done, and it needs to be integrated with all other history, because it took all of us to make the United States what it is today.
I want to take a call from Omar on the west side. Good morning, Omar. Go ahead.
Good morning, Ann, and good morning, Mrs. Greene. I just wanted to give you praises on your courage, honor, and commitment to our community and all you've done in face of the onslaught that you have endured for getting our schools a couple of pennies. But I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. We also have a call from Hank on the north side. Good morning. Go ahead, Hank.
Hello, how you doing?
Terrific. Go ahead.
My comment is, I believe that for as the African American knowledge with the student, it first should be brought together with the parent from the teacher so that they can collaborate together, and the parents should share that with the child to deal with any emotional effect it might have on the child. That way it won't go to the school. The parent will already rectify that with the communication of the child. That way, things, will flow better. But the neighborhood, like the gentleman said earlier, it does need to come from the home. But the parents and teachers really need to get together so they can bring the kids up to speed about, African American studies.
Yeah. Thank you, Hank.
That's my comment.
Appreciate it. Thank you. We also have a call from Shamarie in Hyde Park. Good morning. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for taking the call. And this, I'm going to try to get this out very quickly. Dr. Greene, thank you for all your work you did, and we especially appreciate your work with Raines High School. I have a question. As a product of Duval County Schools, Raines High School, Central Riverside, Hyde Park, the schools that I've attended, Landon Middle School. When I was in school, when I was in the predominantly black schools, I would get ridiculed, and I would hear things like, well, why does he talk white? Like, why are you talking like you're white? Why you use those big words? Why are you dressed like a white boy? And so when my question is, do we think that terms like African American and black continue to perpetuate division, not only in the African American community, but in the American society at large? When we have stations like BET, Black Entertainment Television, does that put in the mind of a child that black TV is separate from white TV or, of course, mainstream TV? When you have black radio, does that engender in the mind of a young person that black is separate from everything else in the nation? Are we continuing to perpetuate division with terms like African American and black? Thank you.
That's an interesting question, Shamarie. Dr. Greene, what are your thoughts?
Well, first, I want to make sure everyone knows I'm not the expert on whether African American studies, the African diaspora. But what I will say is that everyone should be able to embrace their identity, embrace their culture, embrace what they see as their community, and at the same time be able to intersect with other individuals who are not of their same culture. And so the division comes when people are narrow-minded, when people want to feel like somehow their culture is superior or better than my culture in which I experience. The young man said he went to Raines High School and they asked, why do you talk like you're white? Believe it or not, I went through the same thing because I grew up as an Air Force brat. I lived overseas, and when I came back to the United States, I was teased about my dialect, if you will. But I also knew that I had a strong connection with my church. And if my church wants to do something that's specific for the individuals that attend that church, it should be accepted. Just like if we want to have BET, it should be accepted because it is something that I personally connect with. But at the same time, 2 hours later, I'll go watch Lifetime or I'll go watch something else. We are not monolithic as a ethnicity. We have unique desires, we have unique thoughts, we don't all think alike, but it should not be a reason for division because there are specific things that are done for my community. Just like we have Chinatown in New York or Little Italy. Those individuals have embraced their culture, their traditions. We should be able to do the same thing and at the same time be able to assimilate into the culture of the United States and be a part of the fabric of this country.
We have a note from Lane on Facebook. She said, I felt betrayed by society when I learned as an adult some of the events in Florida regarding Black history. I know education is age-based, but surely by high school, I could have learned more. I want to ask you, because we did talk about self-regulation of teachers a little bit, and I just wanted to note there was a couple of instances that were reported on permission slips that are now being sent home. In Miami-Dade last year, there was a permission slip sent home for kids to, quote, listen to a book written by an African American. The teacher felt compelled to seek parents' permission for that. And another school, a private school, had sought permission for students to participate in, quote, presentations showing the achievements and recognizing the rich and diverse traditions, histories, and innumerable contributions of Black communities. I think it was a charter school, I should say, not a private school. But in both instances, parents feeling that teaching something favorable or even related to a Black American required parental permission.
Well, that's when you have laws that are very broad, very vague, that individuals have to figure out, well, what does this mean for me? How does this impact my classroom? And we tend to go to the very far right and be very conservative in making sure that they're protecting themselves. It is unfortunate that we would need a permission slip for children to learn about another culture that impact American history.
Or even their own culture.
Yes.
Which is, as you said, part of American history is Black history. I want to take a call from Don on the north side. Good morning, Don. Go ahead.
She said we can email it to her.
Hello.
Don, go ahead.
Can I hear it? There's a little information interruption in the background.
Don, I think we're going to have to take you another time, or perhaps you can call back. I want to ask you, Dr. Greene, the work that you do today in terms of promoting literacy and inclusive literacy. Can you just talk a little bit? You're working now on a national landscape, not locally, strictly.
Absolutely. Children's Literacy Initiative is a national nonprofit that focuses on high quality literacy instruction for Black and Brown students. And, you know, when we say for Black and Brown students, it's just ensuring that teachers have the highest level of professional development, that they see the benefit of culturally relevant pedagogy infused with the sciences of reading, to ensure that not only do children learn how to read, but that children can see themselves in the text, that children are valued, and they all have unique abilities. The books that we offer through Children's Literacy Initiative are global in perspective. We have books that have Chinese characters, European characters, African American characters, Latinx characters. We want to make sure that children have access to texts that, you know, relate to them, and that they can see themselves not only where they currently are, but that they have control to be whoever they want to be. That literacy equals liberation. It allows you to be empowered to decide your own pathway. The research is clear. When students are not proficient by third grade, they are 3 to 4 times likely not to graduate from high school. And that actually is a workforce issue. It impacts workforce development. And so if we have a vast number of individuals not literacy proficient, if you will, it has the ability to impact our economy, impact our society. And right now, with the NAEP scores just being released, the students that I just talked about are the ones who are lagging behind. Black and Brown students, multilingual students, students of poverty. Those students are scoring where they were scoring 30 years ago. And we have to be an organization that can support early childhood programs, which that is our focus in Duval. We are focused on early childhood, birth to age 5, and that providing that support to educators. And I love to call them educators because most times early childhood teachers don't call themselves educators. They are more than daycares. They are actually providing the pre-reading skills that children need before they enter kindergarten. And we want to uh, be that support for them. We want to provide strong professional development and then one-on-one coaching. And then we include the family. We want families to be a part of their child's literacy journey. And many times, children of poverty do not have their own personal library. And I'm so excited that we can provide that for them. We can provide parents with training and then provide their child with their first personal library.
Well, Dr. Diana Greene, she's the CEO of the Children's Literacy Initiative, former school superintendent here in Duval County. Dr. Greene, thanks so much for being on the program today.
Thank you.
Coming up, the story of American Beach, a Jim Crow era haven for Black families. Welcome back. Well, it was a millionaire's dream for ordinary beachgoers and a Black beach that, by its name, welcomed everyone. Joining me to discuss the history of American Beach and efforts to preserve the legacy of its founder is Carol Alexander. She's the executive director of the A.L. Lewis Museum at American Beach. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and it's great to see you. For people who haven't been to this historic Amelia Island beach, remind us who A.L. Lewis was and how the beach came to be.
Well, A.L. Lewis was one of 7 men that founded the Afro-American Industrial and Benefit Association here in Jacksonville in 1901. And he became president, and when he became president in 1919, created a pension bureau for the Afro. He changed the name from Afro-American Industrial and Benefit Association to the Afro-American Life Insurance Company, and saw that the employees of the company did not have the opportunity to get a mortgage from a bank or a car loan. We're talking in Jim Crow era times, so they created a pension bureau so that the employees could borrow for things that they needed. And one thing that we didn't have at that time is a place of our own for the ability to relax in between our times of work. We were going up to Franklintown on Amelia Island, which was the 40 acres that the Harrison plantation had deeded to the ex-enslaved people. And we would have to go there because we couldn't go on Jacksonville Beach, which used to be called San Pablo Beach. There was a law. So he looked at some land next to Franklintown and inquired about if it were possible to buy it. A white lawyer did go and intercede for him, so that pension bureau purchased the land next to Franklintown, which is now we know as the Amelia Island used to be plantation. Now it's Amelia Island Omni. That was an all-black community from 1865 to 1975. And he created a recreational place for African Americans in 1935. There were other black beaches in our area, Manhattan Beach, Butler Beach, but he said, we have to have a place for, in his words, quote, recreation and relaxation without humiliation, end quote, and named it American Beach. A.L. Lewis stepped back and said, you know, we are as American as anyone else. So that's how American Beach came into existence.
And we're showing some photos of American Beach in its heyday. If you're watching our live stream, there's just some really beautiful archival photographs. But, you know, you mentioned Manhattan Beach, which was in, you know, kind of what is currently Atlantic Beach, and Butler Beach, which is down near Crescent Beach in St. Augustine. But those were not residential beaches. I mean, what is really unique about American Beach is there were homes, homeowners, people of color who owned property there, and families who grew up for generations on that beach.
Exactly. The property, the first 33 acres in 1935, for $2,000. Just got to put the dollar, because right now, 150 by 100 lot is up in about $650,000. But anyway, I digress to how inflation has come. And you are very right. The initial people who built the homes in 1935 to 38 were the employees, the vice presidents, the managers. They were the ones who initially purchased homes. And then the company, as they added more acres, they looked at this was a utopia. Anybody can come. So the Pension Bureau started to put up pavilions and cottages for other people to come. So there were two ways that we could go there. One, people who could build homes, and then eventually they opened it to anyone that could build homes, professionals in Jacksonville and southern Georgia. And also these cottages. And as you say, people who grew up there, people were reserving their cottage space. They couldn't afford to build a home, but they were preserving their cottage space for year after year. Oh, I want the first week of June. I want the second week of August. So that created this generational utopia of a place for us to go for, again, quote, rest and relaxation without humiliation, end quote. So there's histories of people, as we're looking at the 90 years, that can tell you when they first put their foot on the sand.
The beach was not just, you know, a place to recreate on the ocean and in the sand. There were these businesses that operated there, some very popular kind of nightclubs, the Blue Palace, the Ocean View Inn, and really huge names that came and visited and performed.
Oh, my goodness.
People like Cab Calloway, and visited by Hank Aaron, James Brown, Zora Neale Hurston would go up there and vacation.
I got to dissect some of that history you just dropped. Let's start with Zora.
Okay.
Now, we know Zora is Zora. She was everything in the literary world, but as a personality. She was here in Jacksonville, did the WPA project right at the Clara White Mission, but Zora fell in love with one of the grandsons of one of the founders of the Afro.
Really?
She married up in Nassau County and honeymooned on American Beach. Little tidbit of history. But let me go back to some of the other places that you mentioned. One was the Rendezvous. The Rendezvous was the, quote, joint, end quote. Yes, had Cab Calloway. And later in the years, early entertainer James Brown in the 50s. There were entertainers on and on that would come through there. There was another place called the Lee's Ocean View Inn. And entertainers would come up to American Beach after, guess what? They would play on Ashley Street.
In Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville. So again,
in La Villa.
In La Villa.
Yeah.
Yes. So again, you have this synergy of entertainment. You have this synergy of families and people going back and forth from here in Georgia. And those entertainers would go up there. I mentioned also Lee's Ocean View Inn. They were a early, not a bed and breakfast. This was a small hotel. It was sophisticated, wonderful white tablecloths like the Richmond Hotel here in La Villa. And people like Count Basie or Billy Eckstein would sing there. Different than at the Rendezvous, the juke joint that had good fried fish. And it had all the flavor that you wanted to have if you were looking for entertainment after the day with the family on the beach. So American Beach had that. And it wasn't just in this area. I heard about American Beach where I grew up in Philadelphia. We had Chicken Bone Beach in Atlantic City, a white beach that had a carved out place for us to go. And I can remember my grandparents said, "Baby, there's a beach down south that is just our own." Never could have realized that that is the same one that my grandmother was talking about, American Beach.
So many connections. We should note, I mean, you mentioned La Villa. You, of course, were the executive director of the Ritz Theater and La Villa Museum for 14 years or so before moving on to your current position at the A.L. Lewis Museum. There were very famous descendants of A.L. Lewis, not least Dr. Janetta Cole.
My.
Who is, an extraordinary scholar and anthropologist and in her own right, an educator. But her sister was really the champion of American Beach for a number of years, Maveen Betch, who was an environmentalist and an activist and a free spirit like none I've ever met. She is a really extraordinary person. Remind us what she did to try to save American Beach from some of the surrounding pressures, the development pressures.
My mama, they called me the spiritual daughter of the beach lady, and I had to introduce it that way because of the living education that I had from her. Let us not forget all of who she was and had become. One, she was an opera singer, very acclaimed opera singer in Germany. One, a mezzo soprano that early in her age, she had reached the epitome of what that voice was. And she was called home by her mother in between seasons in Germany that said, can you come home and help me with your grandfather? That was James Lewis. And she did. And when she got here to Jacksonville, found that her mother was ill. Her mother passed soon as she got here. Her end words were, "Marvine, the beach, Marvine, the beach." And then 6 weeks later, her grandfather died. So she found that coming back here to Jacksonville, Sugar Hill, 95 had created a division through the Black community, chopped up businesses, went up to the beach thinking that her mother was directing her there, saw that American Beach had gone into its dormancy. 1964, Dora came through, and the hurricane just leveled American Beach. And then that same year, the Civil Rights Act happened, and we could go to other places. So when she came back, she saw a light that we had to bring American Beach back into its vibrancy. And she did in multiple ways. She became an environmentalist. She was a brilliant woman who studied all things about life and human life and would fight against development, not only right there, because they had come and taken away Franklin Town and developed the Millie Island Plantation, a slap in the name of our face, but she was going to save that beach. But she couldn't just save American Beach with the environmental attentions and education. She had to save that island, because when she came back, Amelia Island is not what we see now. It wasn't all of the development we saw now, and the threat of trees being torn down, erosion on the beach, and on and on and on. So she became this giant in environmental causes. It became politics to her, because if you make changes, politics come to play. In the early 80s, she began to write to Ronald Reagan's administration. We weren't calling it global warming then. We knew environmental change. And they just did not pay attention to it. He did not even place laws to be able to stop it in America. And she got so upset that she took the R out of her name. She didn't want anything to do with Ronald Reagan.
She used to be Marvine.
She was born Marvine, took the R out of her name. Politics brings on your tensions in different ways. When somebody regulates you, you got to figure out how to undo the regulations. So she became Mavine. Oshun Betch took Elizabeth out of her name, didn't want to be named after a colonizer. Queen Elizabeth that colonized Africa.
Now, she was also known, though, as the Beach Lady for much of her life when she was living in American Beach, sometimes in a camper, sometimes on a chaise lounge, essentially.
All of those things happened at the same time. You know, the name change. She was living on the beach, you know, in her lounge. And then she got the motorhome. Her sister provided funding for me to go find the motorhome for her to go into. But the motorhome became a museum. The motorhome became an educational spot when you came down Lewis Street.
And she would invite people in to share the history of the beach.
Exactly. And to do tours.
And that's the mantle you've inherited with the museum, right? I mean, it was her vision to create a museum about American beach history.
Totally. It is the museum itself. She would create that idea, put that idea in the county. She put the idea that the county needed a building. So the building that we are in now is a county building. Initially, I named it American Beach Museum, and now it has been renamed the A.L. Lewis Museum. So you would find that history of how it began 90 years ago, but also how she championed it and what she did with her image, because that was all a part of people having a focus. You know, she used to say, as an opera, why else would I look like this?
Well, so for people who aren't able to watch the stream, we've had some pictures of her up, but she had an extraordinary head of hair, 7 feet long, kind of long dreadlocks. She had these nails that she grew out. She was, you know, always adorned with cowrie shells, and her hair had political buttons all over it. I mean, she really struck quite a figure. Memorable.
Let me talk about that. She asked me before her transition to do 5 things. And one of the 5 was to cut her hair and her nails to preserve whenever I would create this museum. So you must come to see. So the 7 feet of hair is in the museum. I had it protected for almost 9 years before we had it placed in the museum when we opened it and first opened it in 2014. And then miraculously, the buttons are still there. The buttons were political statements. The stickers on her motorhome were political statements. The politics of the nails, I don't know. That was just to say, you know, you can do whatever you want to if you're a free woman. But you will see that also in the museum.
Are you still collecting things? Are there items that people may have in the community that would be helpful to you in your collection?
Yes, collections are always essential. Part of our education in museums. So if there anyone out there whose family used to come to American Beach, I need your pictures. The last weekend we opened a new exhibit that celebrated the 90 years of both the Beach Lady, who was born January the 13th, 1935, and the beach opened 2 weeks after her birth, and January 31st. So we had people come who have been coming to American Beach all of their lives or generations, and I discovered pictures that I didn't even know. Wish I had it in the new exhibit, but we'll use them. So please bring what you have.
Yeah, and the new exhibit is called Sankofa. There is so much to talk about and learn about at the A.L. Lewis Museum. And Carol Alexander, it's a delight to talk to you about it. Thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you for the invitation to talk about the work we do at the A.L. Lewis Museum at American Beach.
All right. Carol Alexander. Up next, the delicate egret inspires
Jacksonville Symphony's Concert Organ Series season finale on February 8th features Greg.
Musk's power grab, his destruction of U.S. soft power, and USAID's role in national security. That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11, here on WJCT News 89.9.
The most common form of dementia is Alzheimer's disease, and the number of those being diagnosed is on the rise. Effective treatments remain scarce, and one of the reasons why is being attributed to years of research based on doctored images. Investigative reporter Charles Pillar walks through what he's uncovered next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, a new two-part ballet showcases both classical traditions and abstract dance. I'm joined now by Robert Forleo, the artistic director at the Florida Ballet and choreographer of one of the two ballets in this showcase. Welcome, Roberto.
Thank you.
And Lisa McLatchie, executive director of the Florida Ballet and an alumnus of the ballet. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Lisa, this is an upcoming performance. It's called Love Takes Flight, Wings and Strings, and it's a collaboration actually with the Jacksonville Symphony Orchestra. Can you just sort of describe the show?
Sure, and probably Roberto is the best to describe the show. As our artistic director, he's choreographing the strings piece, and we have a guest choreographer for wings. Roberto, do you want to explain the program?
So, yes, we're opening next weekend. So we have two pieces. The first one is Wings. It's a contemporary ballet choreographed by Eathorne Bahr. And the second one, Serenade for strings. I'm still choreographing. I'm hoping to finish today.
Okay.
And
you're on a deadline,
so it's still
yes,
I am in the deadline. And it's going to be also performed at the end of the season with the Jacksonville Symphony Orchestra. And it is an abstract piece. It's still balletic.
Describe, I don't think people know what abstract ballet is necessarily.
Basically, there's no story. And in a regular ballet, you have a storyline. It's a storytelling, like the Nutcracker or Swan Lake. It tells a story. There is a narrative. In the abstract, there's just, for example, my piece, it's 5 movements. It showcases the strength of the dancers. In each movement, there is a lead couple, and then there's a corps de ballet. And so it's just, and I took inspiration from the writing of the music, which is the 4th movement. It's written in musical form ABA, which means you have the first music. It's the first phrase A, followed by a second phrase B, and then we repeat the phrase A in the music. So
this is a piece by Dvorak, we should say, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, Antonin Dvorak. So I took that construction of the music and I translate in choreography. So I start with a phrase, then there is a following phrase, and then I repeat the phrase. Sometimes the repeat, it's a little different, and this is a typical construction of choreography. Many choreographers use that same model.
That's interesting. The tension, Lisa, between, sort of formal versus dramatic ballet, I think has existed for a long time. The classical tradition, very much like this sort of narrative storytelling. Why did you want to pair the two in this performance? An abstract piece with a more traditional piece.
Well, it's interesting, for the audience. Jacksonville, they may not know that we have a professional ballet company. So we want to provide something that appeals to someone new to the ballet as well as someone who is familiar with the ballet.
Yeah. And so it sort of gives them a little sample of each.
And every time I have a chance for the company, I like to program different pieces. There's not only storytelling, but so you can give a taste to the Jacksonville audience of different kind of dancing, and showcases also the versatility of the company and the diversity in the program. So you don't just program all the big classics, but then you give to the audience something else, something different.
Are you using the same dancers in both pieces, or are they?
We are.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
So they have to have that flexibility and
correct.
Do you find that there's a preference among your dancers for one or the other?
Not really. They all like to go from classical ballet to more contemporary. Even my piece is not really classical ballet, but it's more balletic, meaning we use the ballet technique, but it's more neoclassical, if we want to say a new classical.
Yeah. And I guess the traditional portion of this, Lisa, is kind of based on the movement of egrets, the flight of egrets, and kind of their, their delicate motions. But this is a performance. There's a couple of dates that it's being performed, and one of them is like a Valentine's Day themed one.
Yes, Friday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. You want to be at the Florida Ballet. We have a special night planned. Catering by Chef's Garden. They're amazing. And we're going to transform our studio space into more of like a dinner theater type atmosphere. We're going to serve dinner, have a bar. You get to sit stage side, so you're up close to the dancers. It's a really unique experience. And then that Saturday and Sunday, we have 2 additional shows in the following weekend.
Okay. And where is it located?
We're on Arlington, or in Arlington on Atlantic Boulevard. We are in a 30,000 square foot building. We moved into this building in 2019. We were downtown, and we were able to purchase this building, and we expanded, and we use every bit of that space. It's really amazing. We have 8 studios, and we share the space with other organizations, so it's really become a cultural hub.
Well, it's cool. I think it'll be a great thing for people to check out. Lisa McClatchy, Roberto Forleo. Nice to have you here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That's our program. Thank you for listening. Join us tomorrow when
Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.